Sim Racing chassis in this video is the Next Level Racing GT Ultimate featuring the new motion platform V3. Learn more at nextlevelracing.com. Welcome to Inside Sim Racing and part 2 of our iRacing Season 2 2017 first look. So in part 1, Billy Strange went out and besides filming probably the best intro ever in sim racing, he went and checked out the new bull ring at Las Vegas Motor Speedway and checked out the updated tires that are coming to most of the GT cars and even some non-GT cars such as this McLaren MP4-30 Formula 1 car. So in this update, or I should say first look, part 2, I want to focus on VR. So as you can obviously see, I am running in VR, and I'm running in VR because iRacing now goes and mirrors the VR image, which is what you're seeing at the left eye, in full screen to whatever resolution that you are running at, which is awesome. This is something I've been hoping to see from iRacing for a long time. Currently in sim racing land, only Assetto Corsa does this, where it zooms in on that image from the left eye to give you a full screen look. And because of that, a lot of times when I do an Assetto Corsa video, I like to run it in VR and then of course in the ultra wide resolution to give you a very cinematic look. Cinematic? Yeah, we'll go with that. So yes, it is now here in iRacing, which is awesome. Now, some intrepid video makers in the past have just gone and cropped down that goofy aspect ratio vertical triangle that iRacing currently puts out. They've done that themselves to give a full screen look, but it's always best to have this feature from the factory and not have to mess with it in the aftermarket, and that is now what iRacing has done. And to sweeten that deal, they've also come out with a new graphic feature called sharpening. So in your graphics settings, you can go and select sharpening, and it does exactly what it sounds like, where it goes and sharpens up all the edges, which is especially important in VR since everything can be a little bit blurry with the lower resolution. And the sharpening, which I do have on, does help out quite a bit. So when you go and just select sharpening, it automatically sharpens at 125, which is a setting that can be updated in the renderer.ini file all the way up to 300. I assume those are percentages from the standard image. And so for what we're running right now, we are running at 150 to give it a little more of a crisper look for not only me driving, but especially for you guys watching the mirrored image. So this has been combined with something that has been around, which is super sampling, which is pretty critical in VR. Super sample I'm currently running at is 116, which again isn't much of an increase over the base image of 100, but gives a little more eye candy and doesn't hurt performance too much more. And speaking of performance, we are at IMLA for a reason, because IMLA has received some optimizations to improve some of the frame rates. Now with that said, there are still points around this track where you will see that I'm getting some drops, and I think this kind of your mileage may vary depending on your hardware. So while I am running a pretty new still 1070 graphics card, I am running an ancient i7 2600K CPU that is definitely needs to be updated and will be updated this year thanks to all the new CPUs that are come out and new price competition. So I am struggling a bit on the hardware side. So with that said, my lack of hardware, or modern hardware, and turning up some of the eye candy for you guys, I'm still having spots where I am losing some frame rates, including right in this area. So yes, this is still a demanding track, as a lot of the newer tracks in iRacing are, but I will say in one area it's gotten better is right here. So right about this point is when in the past I would start seeing some frame drops. I'm not seeing that now. Now I'm still seeing it right here. So you get a little bit in the corner, which you definitely don't want frame drops in the corner, but most of these drops here are on the straightaway, so not as big of a deal. And then it goes right back up to 90. So yeah, I am definitely seeing some of the optimizations here at Imola. Not all of it, but again, I think a lot of that has to do with my system is not getting old, is old, and I'm trying to turn things up a little bit higher for you guys and capture while I drive. So all these things add up to more stress on the PC. So now let's transition to another new feature of the Season 2 build. So VR wasn't only updated on the visual side with the mirroring at the full screen resolution to make things a little bit more, I guess you can say, nice to watch when you're seeing videos or to watch your replays afterwards, but there's also been a sound improvement to VR where now the sound changes depending on the position of your head. Now, I will say, in the car, this was something that I had a tough time picking up, and I have a feeling it's going to be something you notice more when you're racing other cars around you, and depending on where those cars at, you know, how that sound's going to change via to your head position. But here in spectator mode, while I'm watching the car go around the track, I can definitely notice the change. So, this is me moving my head side to side. And while I'm looking at the car, I hear it, turn to the side, a lot more quiet, back out the car, back off the car, a lot more quiet. So yeah, this is really the only place so far that I've really noticed it. Now, I don't know if it's my favorite thing, because I feel like if I rotate my head and I turn my ear towards the car, I should hear the car just as much, or maybe even more so, at least in my left ear. But I have a feeling it's something that's been optimized more for being in the car and maybe isn't quite there yet as you're spectating a car, because if you've been to the track, you know that there's sound everywhere, and the sound changes a bit as you walk around, but you still kind of hear, this is getting pretty quiet when I turn my head. So I think there's still some improvements to be made here, but it is a cool option to have, and is an option that you can turn off if you do not care for it. Welcome to Bathurst, one of the greatest racetracks in the world. And when you go to Bathurst, you go and grab a V8 supercar. Now, besides being at Bathurst for a good reason grabbing the V8 supercar, also went ahead and grabbing it because this V8 supercar, the Holden in this case, has received a sound update in the Season 2 build, which makes that awesome transmission whining sound a bit more prominent. And I have to say, I already thought the V8 sounded pretty good, but it sounds even better now. So with that said, I'm going to shut up and let you just enjoy the sights and the sounds of the car around Bathurst and see how much the view jumps around thanks to my motion simulator. Welcome to Las Vegas Motor Speedway, the now big brother to the Bull Ring that's located right outside of Turn 2 as part of new content that can be purchased for the Season 2 build. And decided I need to give the Oval guys some love and show the changes to the 2017 Cup cars. So this year it is the Monster Cup Series as Monster Energy has stepped in. And even though the name change is reflected on the cars when you go and select the cars from the drop down that you want to go race, the Monster branding hasn't quite made it to the cars yet. So on the windshield you will not see the Monster Energy logo, and I'm wondering if that's something that might show up later, because I'm sure there's all sorts of licensing and all that good stuff. But the other changes to the 2017 season are reflected on the car. Your last name now, instead of being on the windshield, is now on the back window. And the spoiler height has been reduced to the very small spoilers that these guys are running in the 2017 season. If I remember, I think they're 3 3/4 of an inch tall, but very small. And then also that plexiglass piece that runs down the trunk has now tapers down to the spoiler height, just like it does on the 2017 Cup cars. So that is the biggest changes to the cars. It doesn't sound like there's any kind of physics changes. It's just more on the graphical sides, moving the name back and matching the spoiler height change. So with that, let's go ahead and leave Las Vegas for something a bit more exotic. Last but certainly not least, we're driving the Audi R8 LMS GT3 at the Schleifer. Just because why not? Because if you're gonna go and show the driver's eye perspective, might as well be at the most badass, scariest track in the world. Even though I will say I still love Bathurst a little more. But no one can argue how awesome the Schleifer is. So the Audi R8 is receiving those new Porsche 911 GT3 Cup inspired tires, and I will say it does drive better, and I am able to hit curbs and other shenanigans that I certainly couldn't do in the past. So again, I'll be quiet. You guys can enjoy the sights and sounds of the car and the track.